Welcome to episode 24 of the At Bat podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez along with Miles, fresh off that trip from Israel. How was it, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I am adjusting back to life in America after one of the craziest trips of my entire life. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Just getting back into the routine of things.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, we talked about it a little bit. It's like you're enjoying it, and you're there for a while, and you come back, and just like life happens, and it's back to it, back to the grind.
Yeah. That's what it is. That's what it is. My energy is I'm
Yeah.
getting used to that that timeline again. The Midwestern uh American time after just being in the yeah. Getting back to it.
Yeah, I can't imagine like I know, like I said, like I've told you before, I've never been to like Europe or just any other country on that side of the world. Like, so I can't imagine like the jet lag and that type of stuff. Like, jet lag for me is like from here to LA, which is nothing. Like honestly, so so it's like I can only imagine like getting over there and getting used to stuff. And yeah, but definitely got to go over there when all those countries over there is something I want to cross off the bucket list. So.
It's beautiful. They're all great. You'll love it.
Yeah, I mean, from your stories and all that, man, like seeing all the footage, and I actually put something from your story last week in the episode. So it was like, cool to see all that and just like, yeah, it's a beautiful country. So,
Yeah.
um, all right, but now we're shifting over to, as Miles said, the Midwest, and we'll talk about the Cubs first. They're 60-82. They lost the series to the Reds at Wrigley, lost the series to the Giants at Wrigley, and then have won a series against the Mets in New York. So they couldn't close out the series win versus Cincy. They lost 4-3. That was a Jonathan India RBI single that actually ruined Suzuki's heroics. He had a hit a home run in the bottom of the eighth. And the Cubs ended up losing that one. In game one versus San Fran, Drew Smiley outdueled Carlos Rodon and Nico Horner and Gomes homered, but Cubs ended up losing that one 4-2. And then or excuse me, that one, the one that we won 4-2. And then in game two was the one that the Cubs lost 5-2. Stroman allowed 4 runs in 4 innings, and Logan Webb shuts down the Cubs. Then in game three, the Cubs ended up losing that one 4-2. Wade Miley with a second start back from the IL. He won 5 innings, allowing 1 earned run. But the Giants ended up getting to Wisniewski, who pitched 80, who actually pitched 3 2/3 innings through 88 pitches, which is, I mean, regardless of giving up a few runs, I think it's kind of cool to see a young guy like that just like last time, go off and just like pitch like almost the rest of the game. Um, and then against the Mets, the Cubs started on Monday a series in New York and they won 5-2. McKinstry and Ortega hit home runs, and then Javier Assad was nearly flawless, throwing 6 innings, 1 earned run, while striking out 6. And then in game two, the Cubs hit home runs Ian Happ hit a home run off Jacob DeGrom, and Adrian Sampson was able to beat DeGrom, and the Cubs win 4-1. So overall, a tough week in the sense of series wins, but the Cubs were, when you're playing against a team like the Mets, who was like a World Series favorite, it's good to see, them play competitive and not give up about that. What's your overall thoughts on the Cubs week? Especially, I guess, I would say the most important part is that series win against the Mets, just because, of the stakes that are still out there for the Mets and kind of like, Cubs playing spoiler and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's pretty it's one of those weeks where you don't want to raise the bar too high for this ball club. Um, I think the Reds have always pretty much given the Cubs a hard time. The Giants aren't a team that is out of this world, but they're still a very, very solid ball club, and they come out of a very competitive division. So not too much to expect out of that ball club there. I know, some people are kind of frustrated with Stroman right now for how much he's getting paid and some of the starts that he's had this year, and look at his ERA and his record. Fair enough. Maybe, we let him settle in next year, and I still believe things are looking up. Then you look at the series against the Mets, like you talked about, that's huge. Um, this team is very, very capable of beating good teams as long as they just, stay in there and kind of just stay the course. That's an amazing game last night against the Mets. Offensively, just very timely hitting. But more credit to that pitching staff yesterday, just to really shut down a very, very good Mets team that is starting to slip a little bit, a lot of bit in that division, and they're kind of trying to fight for first place in that division. A lot of good to take away, a lot of good to take away, and even and kind of want to go back a little more, even in those losses against San Francisco, those are still very close games. You know, Cubs are right there. They're right there, and I admire the fight, and they're not getting blown out. They're losing. They're losing by a little bit. So there's a lot of good to take away from this past week of baseball, and there's a lot of more good to look forward to.
Yeah, no, and that is true. It's like, and we've talked about it before, just how good it is to compete. Even if you're losing, I mean, if you know you're gonna lose, as long as it's a close game and you're able to, stay in it and keep it close, it's very important, especially for confidence levels and to show that if you can compete against a big team, that for the young players to come up here and get that sense of confidence, and when you talk about confidence, I mean, how I wonder how much confidence a guy like Javier Assad has, because of how good he's pitched with us so far. And I mean, it's good to see these young arms, man, because you just like there's for the longest time it was the Cubs cannot develop pitching, they can't do this and that, and you just get guys like Wisniewski up here, and Keegan Thompson, Justin Steele, and solid arms, man. And it's like seeing that type of stuff at this time of year is probably the best part of September and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, as far as we know where the Cubs are at, we all know where they're at. So I think ending the season strong. I think, hey, maybe who knows? They might, pull off a nice little stretch and win, like 70 games or something like that. They got 10 more wins to go. Probably not going to get it, but hey, you never know. And that's probably just a little bit of a goal, as much as a lot of people expected them, to win less than the games they have right now or whatever. But yeah, I mean, and I think also another plus would be like the Cubs finishing third, because I think a lot of people thought they were going to finish last when you were looking at them maybe in May or June of how bad they were. And so far they're still sitting in third, in front of the Reds and the Pirates. Probably not saying much, but you know, got to take what you can get at this time of year. A couple of things I did want to mention too was that Nico Horner unfortunately went to the IL, and then Rafael Ortega, he broke his, I believe it was his thumb, and he's out for the rest of the season. So that's rough. Um, but I will say, or also Wilson Contreras is still yet to come back, so hopefully we can get him, back so he can, play some games at Wrigley because you never know what's going to happen this off season. Speaking of the off season, I know we'll get into all this in future shows. But David Kaplan came out last night on his post game show, or in his post game that he does on Twitter and all that. David Kaplan from NBC Sports Chicago, and he talked about how he's heard that there's mutual interest in with Trea Turner, and that Carlos Rodon has interest in pitching for the Cubs. We'll split that up real quick. So Trea Turner, mutual interest. Earlier in the year, there was talk that Trea Turner wants confirmations from, or a confirmation of where the team is going when it comes to the Cubs. And I guess now that he's showing some interest, maybe he likes where the team is going. But what do you think about that? What do you think about the Trea Turner? We'll start with that one first, and just kind of like, what do you think about that? And also, I want to get your opinion on the fact that the Cubs are looking for a shortstop, right? Like that's one of the things they might do. But how do you feel about them moving Nico Horner, who's like statistically one of the best shortstops in the game, for sure the best one in the NL? I don't know how to really wrap my head around that, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, I don't know. I question a lot of this strategy and the management. I try not to with this ball club. But I question it a little bit. I think as a baseball player, if there is something that any little thing that changes, even if it's if I'm hitting well and I'm moved to left field, or if I'm moved to right field, or if I'm moved to second base, for some players it kind of throws off their entire routine, just because the game as a whole really affects, it really impacts how a player performs. Maybe they're thinking different. Maybe they're not as confident in a different position, so they're going to be pressing harder at the plate. I don't know. I don't know why really tinker with that. But when you have someone such as Trea Turner, I guess that is something to consider, something that's very understandable. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. I hope if they do make that move, I hope it's both beneficial for not only Trea Turner, but I hope it's very beneficial for Nico Horner, who has been on this team for quite some time now, and doesn't really deserve to get pushed out of his position. Um, he's so solid defensively. I think that's something that uh that the Cubs shouldn't overlook. But then again, this entire management has all they've done is overlook stuff that's been working. Um, so we'll see what happens there, but I really hope that's not the case. And Carlos Rodon coming to the Cubs, that'd be just another very solid arm for this team. Both of these guys, if they, if this team's able to land them, we're really going to start to see that uphill trend with this ball club. So so much to look forward with that. So much to look forward to. So let's see what happens. We love both of these guys on the Cubs, but I also think that it's going to take a few more pieces for this team to really start to compete, especially against a team like the Cardinals.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points. I mean, w- I think that with the whole Trey Turner thing, I think if you want to counter it, if you kind of want to say, oh, this is the reason why they'd push him off there and stuff, it's the money. I'm sure he's gonna get a lot of money. It's the status, what type of player he is. I guess you do whatever it takes to keep them happy and comfortable. Um, it's unfortunate that you have to push off of a player that leads the National League in defensive runs saved. And it's fourth in the majors in defensive runs saved at his position. Um, and I think, look, at the end of the day, some people might say still, hey, you put Nico Horner at second base, might still be a Gold Glove second base. Most likely he will be just because of how good his defense is. But obviously, shortstop is such a premium position. If it was up to me, I just want to keep him there. And also Trey Turner's defense isn't something to really talk about compared to Nico Horner. So that's another thing too. And I think also, especially when it comes to like for example, Xander Bogaerts that Cubs have been linked to plenty of times over the season. And again, same with him. Like I don't really see how he would fit in defensively with the Cubs setup. But we'll figure things out then. And as Ross has kind of alluded to Nico being open to this, and I mean it's kind of expected with the type of player that Nico Horner is. He's going to probably do whatever it takes to have a player like those guys on the team. So we'll see. I think Ed was kind of having a conversation with a buddy, and he kind of made a good point in the sense that it might be better to go for like a Correa and have Correa go to third and then still keep Nico at in a shortstop. So definitely something I'm sure the Cubs will consider coming down the stretch. And yeah, Carlos Rodon, man, I mean, just thinking about him in our rotation with the guys that we got already, I think it would be awesome. I mean, having Rodon, Stroman, Thompson, Steele, like not to say that's already a postseason rotation, but it's moving the right direction, and you never know. Definitely could be a wild card rotation. So, I really hope that's a thing. And obviously he's played here before, played with the White Sox. So, hopefully that's something that the Cubs will definitely look into and consider doing because I don't think it would be a super long deal. I feel like it would be similar to maybe a Stroman, more money for sure, but a Stroman like deal. Um, so we'll see, but I think he's definitely looking to get paid compared to his last contracts. And of course he's going to opt out of his Giants contract to go into free agency. And all right, so the Cubs have got one more against the Mets this week, and then three more against the Rockies. So hopefully they can string out some wins. They'll be back at home for that Colorado series. So hopefully they can come back home and get some wins. We'll shift over now to the White Sox, who are 73 and 69. They're currently playing actually the Rockies. The Rockies will now then head to Wrigley. 73 and 69 are the White Sox. They had a series win against Oakland, 3 out of 4, and now they beat Colorado in game one. That was game one of two. They're just playing a quick 2-game series. But yeah, the White Sox now sit 3 games back to start the day. They're 3 games back of the first place Guardians. and 6.5 in the wild card race. Now, we said this before. Wild card race is probably not the way they're going to go to the playoffs. If they do, they're just like that, 6.5 games back already with maybe half a month left now. But they had a successful West Coast trip, which is something you can't always say. Game one against Oakland, they won 14-2. Moncada, he went 5 for 6, 2 home runs, and I mean, Dylan Cease again, right? 6 shutout innings, doing his thing. Game two, they win 5-3. It was a magical comeback, honestly. That was the comeback, like, because the A's were up 3-0 going into the ninth, and the Sox won 5-3, scored all 5 runs in the ninth inning. That was one of those wins where I was like, yeah, the Sox are definitely cooking up something right now, and it's serious. So they were able to get that win, and then Elvis Andrus, who's red hot, who's been red hot with the White Sox. He homered, had 3 RBI, and Lance Lynn does his thing with 6 shutout innings in the 10-2 win in Game 3. In Game 4, the Sox weren't able to close out the series with the sweep. They lost 10-3. Cueto had his second clunker in the last month. Gives up 5 runs in 4 2/3. And then, of course, Game 1 against Colorado, the Sox won 4-2. Eloy Jimenez hit a 3-run home run that held up, and the Sox ended up winning 4-2. Kopech goes 5 innings, giving up 2 earned runs. Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on just like the overall stretch the White Sox have had over the last week or so. I mean, hey, I feel like I've said it before. Uh, and I probably don't want to say it because I don't want to jinx it for them, but I have said they were BACK before, and probably shouldn't say it just yet, but it's looking like it though.
Yeah, this team is really heating up, man. These are some these are some whoopings that they're laying down, especially on the Athletics. Oh my goodness. Obviously, aside from that last game that they've had. Look, I don't want to say what some people are thinking. Um they're playing well right now under some different management. Um, so it is nothing against Tony La Russa or anyone like that. And also wishing Tony a speedy recovery. Um, but you kind of gotta you kind of putting that part aside. It's clear that this team just needs some sort of spark in leadership. Um, and I've been saying this over and over again. This ball club is so talented and they are so capable of just making some sort of incredible run. And right now they are hitting all strides when they're supposed to. They got a very, very important last few weeks of this season coming up. You got one against the Guardians tomorrow. You got the Tigers coming in town. You have to take care of business against you have to. There's no reason that you lose that series. And obviously you got Cleveland again, you know, in Chicago, and then the Tigers come to town after that. Then you go to Minnesota. That's a lot of divisional games going on right there. That's a lot of whether it is a team that you should beat in terms of skill, whether it's a team that you have to beat in terms of where you're at. Right now, it's just like the Sox have to keep their foot on the gas and keep going. And you see everything's clicking on all cylinders. I love the outing that Kopech had. I really do. I love how Eloy's been hitting. So much good to take away from. Keep going. Keep going. You're right there. Don't let up. You can't let up. If you've come too far at this point, keep going. Keep going because they could pull something off here.
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite a run that they've had in the last week or so, and
Yeah.
and just the fact that they have those many games against the divisional opponents. It's a great thing, man, because that's what you want to see late in the season when uh you want to face the teams that are ahead of you, the teams that you want to get ahead. You want to face them a lot, and the Sox will definitely get their opportunity. I know the Twins are behind the Sox now in the standings, still going to be there. There's still not so much separating it, like game and a half separating them, but you obviously would rather have more games against the Guardians just because they're the team that you're chasing ahead of you. But you know what it is, what it is. They'll take advantage of that and still be able to, get plenty of games against the teams you want to face. And a couple of the guys that are really helping the Sox right now, it's Yohan Moncada and Elvis Andrus, which I never thought I would say, man. It's been a mini revelation in the season. Yohan Moncada, for example, has a 963 OPS in his last 15 games. He's been raking for longer than that, but just the specific 15 games, he's been killing it. And then Elvis Andrus. has been just a new player with the Sox, an 879 OPS in 23 games compared to a much larger sample size with the A's, a 674 OPS in 106 games. But what do you think those guys have brought to the table? I mean, Yamamoto has been here. We've seen him get hot. He's a streaky player. But when you got a guy like Elvis Andrus, who has been through it, he's been through the postseason runs. Uh, eh, um, he's been there, done that. So, kind of what do you think these players have done in the last week or so that kind of have put the Sox where they're at, kind of in the driver's seat?
Yeah, and I'll start with Moncada. I think just heating up at the right time. Um, this is a ball club where you really need everyone to perform well, and so for Moncada to be hitting and performing the way he has lately, that helps. That just adds another layer of making this ball club solid. So I love that. I love seeing Moncada, kind of start to hit his stride and get some solid ABs. So that's huge. And with Andrews, like you said, he's bounced around a bit. He's been on his fair share of teams. I just think that that experience just comes in so much, and it's something about this White Sox ball club that when players are being brought here mid season or whatever it is, clearly that's a clubhouse that's extremely welcoming and makes you feel very comfortable within yourself. You know, I really want to use Cueto as an example. I know he had a bit of a rough month, but aside from that, he's been very solid. And I really do, in terms of pitching wise, him and Cease have been the reasons why the Sox have been able to somewhat keep their head above water. And so when you look at a player like Andrews, who kind of came from a team where he was off to a really bad start this year. He was. And so for him to come to this ball club and really just figure it out and find his groove speaks miles about how talented this team is, and it also shows how a mature of a player that he is and how valuable that he's been. So you know I love this. I love these two players really hitting their stride, because they're stepping up for players who aren't on the roster right now, who aren't playing, like Tim Anderson. So I love it. I love it. I love every part of it.
Yeah, and it's the thing. Like, if you would have told me, like in April or even March, like two of the best players in the Sox, you know, going into September is Elvis Andrus and Johnny Cueto. I mean, I'd be like, you're lying. What year is this? Because those guys, have been in the league for so long, and have feel like they've obviously peaked. But when you look at Cueto, I mean, dude's pitching like he pitched back in the day. It's like you see a little bit of that. You see, and Elvis Andrus has not really been himself in the last latter stage of his career, but he's showing his experience. He's showing he can still get out there and swing, and hey, you go into a postseason series with a guy like Elvis Andrus who's been there, like I said, and has been through the postseason ring. Like, you never know. And those guys, those are important pieces to have and to add to a postseason team. So hopefully the Sox keep it going. I know, as you said, hopefully LaRussa can get back sooner rather than later. I believe he will be back at the stadium, but not in the dugout. So Miguel Guido will continue to be the interim manager right now. Also, I like the little story that they talked or that came out this week where, Miguel Caro, he had like a whole speech for the Sox players. And, he said, hey, if you don't want to be here, leave. Like, he kind of like was saying, hey, it's go time. Like, this is it. Like, you're either on the train or you're not on the train. So I think that's awesome to fire them up. And, I was actually, again, more off-season talk, but I was talking to a buddy too about just like how the fact that, like, hey, if the Sox, worst comes to worst, they don't make the postseason, or they go into the postseason, they lose, and they do consider getting rid of Tony La Russa. If they were, Miguel Cairo is honestly it would be a good option too to consider that guy. I mean, he's been with those players and he knows those players, and he hasn't necessarily gotten a chance yet in the big league level to manage. So I think it'd be pretty cool, and I think it'd be a good option. So hopefully the Sox will consider that going down the stretch, and to see what happens in the conclusion of this one. All right, we'll shift over now to the rest of the league. Now, I really wanted to get your opinion on some of the stuff that happened while you were gone, which is the rule changes. And yeah, just kind of like, what are you? I know I said a little bit about what I thought about these changes when it comes to the shift, the clock, and the stolen bases and all that. But we'll talk a little bit more. But yeah, I wanted to get your initial thoughts on that, on the rule changes that happened in the last week.
Yeah, so big changes and changes you kind of saw coming. I'll just start with the shift. Um, I think I'm kind of in the middle about it. Clearly, we're playing in a generation that there's a lot of all or nothing. Either a player is hitting to one side of the field or he's not hitting the ball at all. And and baseball is a game of adjustments. Teams are adjusting to that. So you have a player, you have any, and there's many players that come to my head. Um, who are hitting the ball to one side of the field, and it is extremely difficult for them to get on base. It's extremely difficult for a team to start any sort of rally. Um, my whole thing about that as a ball player, and I think that this kind of comes with what I learned in college, is as hitters that we have to adjust. We have to. Um, so this is kind of a cookie that's been given offensively to hitters who have been struggling. Um, it's a rule change that we can't be too surprised by. There's not a lot of players right now that are hitting to all parts of the field, and for the select players who do, this doesn't affect them at all. They're hitting good with or without it. But I think that there is something to be said here about where the game is going. This is the game that is just completely evolving more and more each year. We're kind of in a transition period. So not too surprised by that. When it comes to the pitch clock, I like it a lot. I wasn't a big fan of it at first, but then I thought about the amount of games I've been to, and I'm watching pitchers take so much time in between to a certain point where we're like, hey, dude, throw the ball at any minute now. Um, Specifically, I look at a pitcher like Aroldis Chapman who brings so much. He's so entertaining to watch, but he also does take a lot of time in between pitches. He's not the only one. I'm not just trying to single him out, but he's one of the first pitchers that comes to my mind when I think about this. We gotta pick up the pace. There's a reason why college baseball is so entertaining to watch. It's because these players are playing at a pace. They want to get the game going because they're ready to play. The longer your infielders and outfielders are standing out there, the more easy it is to become restless. So the better pace that you play when it comes to this game, the more entertaining it becomes and the better quality of a game it is. So that's what I think. And it changes strategies when it comes to picking off and everything. I love all of it. When it comes to the bases, I know that there is a conversation about, it's about injuries. Yeah, sure. I think they just want more stolen bases with a bigger bag. That's what I really think it is. You definitely want the safety aspect in there as well. You don't want anybody getting hurt. But, stealing bases has kind of become a lost art in this game. So, bigger bases means more room for a player to slide in. Same thing when it comes to picking off. There's more base for a hitter to grab. It's more ground for the fielder to cover, which is difficult. Tagging a base runner is already hard enough as it is. These guys make it look very easy, but please do not get it mistaken, ladies and gentlemen. It is very, very difficult to catch the ball and get a tag down, find the runner, and get his hand or his whatever the case may be. It's very difficult. So this pretty much changes the strategy of the entire game going into next year. It's going to be interesting to watch. It's going to be an adjustment period for many players. It's going to be difficult for starters who are going in there and they're kind of used to taking their time and they got to pitch at a pace now. It's going to be difficult for the relievers as well. Pedro Martinez was talking about this last night when I was watching TVS with my dad. So there's so much to take away from this, but I think these are good challenges. I think there are aspects of it that are going to be frustrating, but like I said, as players, as much as we have to adjust to hitting away from the shift, now we have to make another adjustment to playing this game in a little bit of a different way. So it'll be something to look out for next year. I think there's going to be moments where we're going to be frustrated, but I do think it's going to be good for the game, and there may be aspects of this that are going to get adjusted and tweaked down the line. So I don't think all of this is set in stone, Next year will obviously be kind of the test run for some of these rules, but we'll see what happens. So, I think it's just time for players to adjust. And for me to say that I'm surprised by this, that'd be a lie. To a certain extent, certain players have brought this on themselves, getting used to playing a game a certain way. So let's see what happens with that going forward. But I'm not against all of it, but I am curious to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah, no, and I've had plenty of conversations over the last week, and there's been plenty of friction in the sense of people that don't like it. And you know what? For the most part, I feel like though people around our age, we're kind of like most of us are indifferent about it. It's like, hey, it's just baseball. It's going to happen. If anything you like, we like it. But a lot of the older generations, and yeah, they hate it, man. I think they like I've talked to plenty of guys. I mean, you said you were talking to your dad, but I've talked to plenty, like, or just plenty of comment sections, and just man, these guys are having at it, and just saying all this stuff like, oh well, you know, ruining the integrity of the game, and all that, and the shift, learn to hit the other way, like all this stuff, and I don't know, man. It's a lot, but the way I see it, the reason I'm indifferent is just because this happens in every sport. Years change, years happen, like, you're sorry, years pass, things happen, games change. The 3-point line wasn't always there.
Right.
The defensive setups in the NFL weren't always limited to players or
Yeah.
amount of players.
Hmm.
I mean, not everything ever stays the same. So it's like everything's gonna
Yeah. Yeah.
change, and obviously there's always gonna be people that like it and don't like it. But it's like I don't think it's gonna necessarily ruin anything that the game stands for, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it like, and the reason, and obviously I've told people too, like the reason they're doing this ultimately is to try to attract more fans and to attract the younger generation. And I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. If they want to try doing
Yeah.
that, do I think it's gonna work? No, but any type of effort towards that is fine with me. Because
Yeah.
I know that most of the, especially like the pitch clock, for sure, they're trying to speed up the game
Yeah.
because
We
they,
can't keep having 3.5
yeah,
hour
yeah,
games for we can't keep doing it. We can't,
yeah,
even as us as diehard fans,
mhm,
we love the game for what it is,
exactly.
but it's like, hey, we can we please pick up the pace, please? So yeah.
No, yeah, and that's the thing, like that one for sure. Yeah, that one 100%. It's just always like the shift ones. I feel like the one that's been like the most like talked
Hmm.
about when it comes, either when it comes to negatively or not, whatever. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, pitch clock just makes sense. You just got to, the fact that it's affected the minors that much in the sense of it being the games being decreased by 20 minutes, 20 something
Hmm.
minutes, like that's crazy. So
Yeah.
that would make a big deal in the majors, and hopefully things go out well. But yeah, it's just, uh it's gonna be something to get used to when it comes to watching the game and seeing things. But I think that the way that players are gonna settle in, I think they'll be fine. I think there's gonna be just a period of getting adjusted and all that, but I think they'll be fine, and we'll get through. And I don't think the game will drastically change to the sense of some people are talking about, because at the end of the day, as you said, we're diehard baseball fans. We're gonna be watching regardless. So you know. So now we'll shift over to the postseason picture, and the Dodgers clinched the NL West. To absolutely no one's surprise. I mean, they had like 50 games in that division, so yeah, nobody was surprised about that. But the one that's still in development, still not done yet, still hasn't wrapped up, and has a long way to go, is the NL East, and that's the Braves and the Mets battling for that number one spot. Uh, I wanted to get your thoughts on that, just because, um, you know, going back to, and I don't want to jinx it, knock on wood, but going back to the beginning of the season, neither of us were convinced on the New York Mets, when it comes to winning the division. You call the Braves winning the division. Same with me. So the Mets, crumbling right now at this time, and the Braves are just so good. Both teams are really good, but they're just the way the Braves are set up, they might be more equipped to win that division. So yeah, just what do you think about how it's going, and how do you think it's going to end?
Oh god, it's gonna come down to the very end of the season. I think like the Mets have been as solid as that they could ever be during the season. And there's so much great to take away up to this point. They're having a little bit of a hard time finishing. and not in the term of they've gotten comfortable, but just in terms of like there are still about what, like 3 weeks, 2, 3 weeks left in the season, 2.5. It's
Mhm.
just there's still so much. We're coming down to the wire, but there's still so much baseball to be played. The Braves, if people have noticed, this is a team that plays with a lot of energy, a lot of motivation, and they play very, very well at this time of the year specifically, every single time. So the Mets have been solid. They're still having a great year. It doesn't help the Cubs coming in and playing spoiler for them. It also doesn't help that Ozzy Albies is right around the corner and has a 5-hit game in the minor leagues. The Braves are coming. They're coming, and I think the Mets are starting to feel that pressure a little bit. I think that they are not crumbling, but it's kind of like a oh crap kind of moment. We've been playing well, but the Braves have been right on our neck. So there's I think the Mets are just kind of in a moment where it's like, hey, you know what? I think let's make sure that we keep taking care of what we have to take care of. We have to take it one game at a time, and we'll be able to neutralize the Braves. But I just, I've always felt this way. The Braves, they play with so much energy. They kind of remind me of like a JUCO baseball team. Just hard nose, goes out there, not scared of nobody. They're gonna go at you. Same thing with the White Sox. Why could the White Sox remind me of when I played on Oakton? Last year's White Sox team, but that's a different story. Um, but the Braves are a team that they're not afraid of nobody, and they're coming. They're coming, and they're only gonna get better. You know what I mean? So I don't believe the Mets were expecting that. I think they kind of looked up and they're like, oh, wait, they're right there. So it's just the Mets are fine. They're healthy. They're gonna continue to play well, but they also have to realize the Braves are a team that this time of year and on is where they play the absolute best.
Yeah, and exactly. They've proven it. They've done it in recently in recent memory, obviously, as close as to last year. So they've definitely been there, and they're not scared of the Mets whatsoever. And yeah, you look at these two teams, and man, it's just. Uh, I've said it before that the Mets just have those types of players that can definitely take you to the World Series. They're gritty players. They have the Brandon Nimmo's and the McNeils, and they have a nasty pitching staff when healthy. But yeah, to be honest, like when the Mets are losing these types of games to for example, the Cubs and stuff like that, you have to have those games, especially now. And you look at the Braves, and they've had a tough go in the last few games just because of the sense of they've played playoff caliber teams like the Mariners. But I don't know. They have a better lineup in my opinion, and just you know, I think just the sense of them, having been there already last year kind of helps them out a little bit. And it'd be cool still to see. Not that I don't think the Dodgers are going to be in the NLCS, but it'd be cool to see a Braves Mets NLCS. So to kind of settle it. But those are really like those three teams in the Dodgers, Mets, and Braves. You could flip a coin and any three of those could win the World Series, in my opinion. So it's going to be a really intense race when it,
Yeah,
going down the stretch. But that's as we want it, because it's really just the um, I personally still think the AL East is over. I think the Yankees are still going to win that, no problem. You could argue the AL wild card is also set. The Orioles are 5 games back. It doesn't really look like they're going to come back and make any noise there, unfortunately. But that's still not a horrible thing for them. They've had a good run this year. The Brewers are still in the mix for the NL wild card. They're 2 games back of the Padres. Padres also have not been very convincing when it comes to um, uh, getting to the postseason. Their type of play down the stretch. Juan Soto just hasn't been the Juan Soto one as he's come over here to the Padres. So we'll see what happens. Plenty of races that are heating up. I don't think either of us, and like I said, we'll talk about more like during our postseason preview in the next month or so. But I don't think either of us really thought the Phillies were going to be where they're at now. They definitely have cleaned up
no,
their act, and Rob Thompson has brought them back to life, and
yeah,
they're going to be there. They're going to be in the postseason. So
yeah.
definitely, a lot that's going to happen, and a lot that we'll definitely get into.
Mark my
But that
words, this will be one of the most fun finishes to a season in MLB history. And
Oh
if it's
yeah.
not, then I'll retire. Cool.
It's true though, because it's like I don't think we've like with just having more postseason spots, there's more, and also just not even the teams that are gonna not make it to the postseason, but teams that are gonna be in it and already are in it, just like for example, the wild card teams, the
Yeah.
shuffling of those and being like, oh, they're facing this team if the season ends
Hmm.
today, or if they're facing this team, like it's gonna really put those teams that are, have the second seed and the third seed kind of like, gonna keep them guessing. So it's gonna be really interesting to see
Yeah.
what happens in that aspect. And
Yeah.
a lot of teams are going to be uncomfortable in the last couple of days of the season because they don't know who
Hmm.
they're facing. So,
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But that will wrap things up for this edition of the At Bat Baseball podcast presented by War Media. I am Saul Rodriguez along with Miles Porter. We will see you guys next week.